All right. I am here with Shanika Maria, aka Shan, with the new project Structura that just dropped. A wonderful project, an incredible singer, but I think you've heard that enough probably. I think with your singer-songwriter stuff in particular too, I think you're a very articulate storyteller with like very smart, careful usage of words. I wrote down some lyrics I liked. Is tie me to a label, and I'll put on all your poses.
I'll put on all your clothes. Yeah,
Clothes.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that line. That's a great
yeah. Thank you.
line. So my first question for you, I did my research to be clear. You've moved around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You taught French, or you taught English in France.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in Hamilton, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're currently in Toronto. Is that right? Or you?
Yeah, I'm in
Yeah.
Toronto right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how moving around and stuff, and especially with COVID and kind of being locked down and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and with this sort of shift in sort of sonically that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of sort of space for creativity and how that's sort of affected your creative process.
Good question. Yeah, I think like it's really important to not confine myself to spaces as well as just like labels in terms of being an artistic person. And I think like having opportunities to be able to move around, like I lived in France for a little bit. And after doing that, I realized that there's more opportunities to move around the world. And I've been really drawn to that. I've been really drawn to like um, being in different spaces, seeing what different people are doing, connecting with different artists or just, you know, general people. So in terms of like COVID right now, like it's been kind of tricky,
Yeah.
you know, setting roots somewhere for a little bit to just kind of like work and like make music and stuff. But there are other benefits that came with um, setting down in place. Uh, in terms of just like my experimentation, I feel like I'm like a sponge and I'm like constantly taking in what I'm seeing other people doing and
Yeah.
just like not even just other people but just like the things that are happening around me and the experiences. I'm just like I always want to continue to learn and like deepen my craft and like try new things without the judgment of them being bad or good, because like at the end of the day you're never going to become a quote unquote good artist unless you were at one point a bad artist, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to allow myself to dabble, make mistakes, ask questions, and um, make things.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you've sponged up in recent time? Is there anything
Mm. Yeah, so the
comes to mind?
production thing has been like uh, I would say like a year I've really been focusing on that and didn't really think that that was something that I could do. Like I put a lot of like stops in front of why I couldn't be a producer or anything. But once I was just having so much fun doing it that it became this thing that was bigger than my own like self-consciousness and like, you know, my own like limits to what I saw myself doing. And it just kind of like accumulated into this thing, into this EP. And I was like, I guess I've created something, it should go out in the world. And I started to feel really comfortable with that. And like even using the term producer is like, it's new. It's a
Yeah.
new label that I'm allowing myself to use and other people to use for me. In terms of just like experimentation lately, like I've been allowing myself to try new things like rapping and like
Oh yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
some spoken word stuff, and like that's not really the vein that I typically express myself in. um, but why not?
Yeah. Why
I
not?
don't know. It's like, and the fact that like I am producing things and like I'm doing it all from my bedroom and just like have a very minimal setup. There's a lot more comfort in working in your own space with yourself to be able to experiment. I find sometimes when you're in the studio and there's people there and whatever, it's like there's an element of performance, there's an element of performing yourself, and like you want to hit those notes, and you want to, you know, you're less willing to just like, you know, be a little bit odd and like try some weird runs or weird sounds, or like I'm learning through working as like a solo artist who's like doing everything themselves, that I'm kind of like learning the foundation backwards, I guess. And I think like when I do get back into the studio, there's going to be a little bit more of a comfortable, like being more comfortable in those spaces, just because I have now a little bit more confidence on like what I can do, and like pushing the limits a little bit more.
Yeah, because I do know when you're working in sort of a more band setting or in a more professional setting, if you will, the pressure to perform is so much more there. Whereas when you're working alone or at home, right, it's limitless, which it can be paralyzing, I would say. But it also means that it's all up to you. The only person you need to impress is yourself, right? Yeah. Which is I think why, you know, bedroom pop music or whatever you want to call it is kind of a magical thing, where you can accidentally come up with these incredible song structures that you wouldn't be allowed to kind of get through that process in a professional group setting.
Totally.
My other question, I got plenty of questions actually, but is like, I always ask people this question, and it's a broad question, but like thematically, like what resonates with you overarchingly, creatively? Like, what are some themes or things or as abstract as you want to take that kind of, you know, titillate you or whatever?
Yeah, I think like I'm always really interested in just like the human experience. Like I'm always just trying to like figure out what, can I swear on here?
You could, I don't care what you say. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like what the fuck we're doing here in this world, you know? It's just like it's such a bizarre experience that we're all kind of going through, and I'm like constantly in question. I'm constantly like, I have no answers. And I think through music, I'm able to explore and ask questions, especially like songwriting. That was always the thing. It was just like, you know, trying to figure out what I'm doing on this world. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing in relation to other people. I'm trying to figure out things like identity. Like it's just such a, so many bizarre concepts that are like, the more you interact with spaces and people and stuff, more questions come. So I'm constantly in this realm of just like trying to figure this out, and using, you know, music has allowed me like a space to kind of just like share that, I guess. Share that with myself, because like a lot of times I'll write lyrics about something and I'm like, I have no clue why I'm writing these things. I have no clue like what the specific incident that inspired this thing, like where it came from. And then maybe a month or two later, or even like this has happened like years later, where I performed the song, I've recorded the song, and I'm like, oh shit, this is what this is about. You know? And it's like, it's such a wild thing, and it's such a beautiful thing of this, like, creation for me is self-discovery. Creation for me is, you know, world discovery and like relationship discovery. It's this thing that like gives us a different window into our minds and our experiences that isn't always easy to articulate just through like general conversation or, you know, like,
well, art expresses what words can't, you know?
Exactly. And I found that like opening myself up and just not confining myself to a lyricist or a singer-songwriter has allowed me different ways to express myself or to articulate things that I find I'm able to tap into different aspects of that in different ways. Whereas like, so with production, there's this feeling of like just fun and experimentation and like just allowing things to be very intuitive in
Yeah.
a way where it's just like, this just sounds nice to my ear. It could be
Yeah.
like two like notes that are like kind of off kilter and like kind of have an eerie feeling to it. And I'm like, for some reason, this is just really
Yeah.
working for me. And I just allow myself to just like the shit that I like, you know? It's nice to kind of do that. Whereas I find when I'm writing lyrics, I tend to be a little bit more serious, or I tend to want to be a little bit more like tongue in cheek. Like I want to sound articulate in a way.
Yeah.
Like I want to have the words, you know, mean something. But like when I write lyrics for this project, it's just kind of like all this stuff came out. Who knows what they mean? Who knows
Yeah.
what they're about? But like that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I've made ambient kind of music with vocals, I don't write lyrics. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's just sound. And what I love about too the project is it seems like you have a very like smart and intentional sense of mood. You know what I mean? Which I like a
Mm,
lot about that EP. Um, is that
thank
it's
you.
yeah, and it sounds like healing. I don't know if that's a bizarre thing to
Mm.
do. I wouldn't go like on not on like a faith level, but on like
Mhm.
somewhere in between the sort of astral plane and reality. You know?
Cool, cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intention. Who knows what comes out, but like
Yeah.
it's always appreciative to like hear that that's that's really cool. That's really cool.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I've listened to it a lot of times. I really like it.
Thank you.
What music in particular would you relate it to? Like specific music, if you had to. I know in the email I think you sent to CFUV, you referenced Sylvan Esso, I want to say, but
Hmm.
I think you're a bit more it's a bit more abstract than that, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually having a really hard time finding related artists, like when I was even doing it, because I wasn't even thinking about that, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I wasn't really thinking about anything else.
Like
Um,
emulation or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm always listening to music, but I'm just kind of listening to whatever I want to listen to.
Mhm.
And when I create, it's not always, I don't know if other artists do this, but I'm like not always trying to like emulate somebody else or like see myself in a vein or a genre
Yeah, I have a
too
bad habit
much.
of doing that, to tell you the truth. But
Mm,
yeah,
mm. Yeah, so it's like I think different artists work from different ways. I just really like to be genre less, I guess.
yeah,
And then after the fact, I'm like, oh shit, I have to figure out like,
what I'm
you
gonna
know,
be. Yeah,
who does this relate to? And like, it can't just be like, I can't just say a bunch of abstract random people that like, it's just,
yeah,
so coming back around from my ramble, other people have told me that like some of the music kind of resembles Fever Ray,
okay,
if
yeah, I
you're
could see
familiar,
that for sure.
and Pat Moon.
Okay,
Those were two people um, that I've been told that it has like some hints of resemblance. Um, yeah, I can't. I was just listening to so much stuff. I was just listening to like any producer
yeah,
and like producers who were doing hip hop, producers who were doing like ambient stuff, producers who were doing like everything because I was just so fascinated by like actually listening for production. Before I always just listened for lyrics or like, you know, you're dancing and you want something like a beat.
yeah, yeah,
But like it's so interesting that you can when you start doing something that you start tuning in specifically to like what is production.
yeah,
It's so wild.
yeah. And there's no right answer, and I hate that people teach this stuff. Even you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because I think you went to Humber College for a little bit, correct?
Yeah, but not for music. Like I went to
Oh,
Humber
okay.
College for 1 year for creative advertising, and then
Creative
I went to
advertising.
school
Okay.
for psychology.
Yeah.
That was my thing.
Um. So what does creative advertising look like? I'm just curious about that now.
Honestly, like I barely know what it looks like. You
Yeah.
know, you're 17, 18, you know, you're
Yeah.
leaving home. I was not focused on school
Right.
whatsoever for that 1 year. It was all like they were teaching us how to use like Adobe Creative Suite a little bit, and like making like print ads and that sort of stuff for things. I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
I just needed like, my parents kind of pushed me into that program because they're like, you're good at business, you're good at art, try this. And I was like, nah, I'm good. This is not for me.
Yeah. Creative advertising. It kind of sounds like an oxymoron in a lot of ways,
I know.
Selling something and creativity. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, who like growing up and stuff, what was the music that you like to listen to the most? What was the stuff? I know in one of the interviews I read of yours, it was like, I think you said Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, dark country. I wrote that down because I wanted to know what that was.
Yeah, I do like some like darker country sounds. Well, like the most like salient memories that I have of like music would be like high school. And I listened to a lot. I was like obsessed with Emily Haynes. So obsessed. Yeah. And Feist, still to this day. Feist is one of those ones that's like, to this day, I'm like,
I was listening to
so
it in the car
great
the other day with my brother, and I was like, Feist is underrated,
Yeah,
Such a
totally.
great songwriter. That Metals album, I think it was called, so good.
Yeah, that's definitely a favorite. So yeah, like I'm like, yeah, everything Feist does, I'm like, what a cool human being, and like interesting human being. I found like I listen to a lot of like singer-songwriter-y indie kind of stuff. So that definitely like influenced my style, like listen to like Broken Social Scene and who else did I listen to? That's always hard for me. I'm like, I can't remember the names of
question,
nobody.
in all honesty, but I don't know. I like music. It's always cool to just hear people say names, like
like in terms of like producers and stuff, like ambient stuff producers, like I really like Niels Fromm.
Niels
If you're
Fromm.
familiar.
Niels Fromm.
Yeah. From Germany or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Olafur Arnolds.
Yeah, they did an album together, those two.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And I just listened to I've been listening to Olafur Arnold's new project a lot.
His stuff is very beautiful, like in terms,
so
a lot of
beautiful.
ambient stuff is dark and minimal.
Yeah.
His stuff is very big, cinematic, gorgeous.
Yeah. I love a good cinematic project. And like I love that he brings a lot of like strong like classical elements to things.
He's got string arrangements and stuff like.
Yeah. I played a little bit of classical music. Like I did classical piano, and like that was something I always really liked. I always liked the sound of classical music, but I was just like, I am not a disciplined enough human being to do anything that's like within the realm of classical art. So yeah, I've always been inspired by it. I think it's so beautiful and pretty, but I'm like, let me just take the little bit of things that I like from it and like bring it into my very sloppy style of like coming towards art.
Well, that's a great ambient production too, is a great way to take some of the motives or whatever out of the more pretty classical music, at least, and go, okay, I hear this chord or whatever. I'm going to try and figure out what that one chord that Eric Satie played, and just that's my song, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which is very fun.
Yeah.
And I'd probably rather listen to that most of the time than some busy classical music. So. What was my next question here? So this is something I've been very curious about for the last little while, and it's when you're making music, and everyone has a different answer for this question, but when you make music, how conscious are you of the audience? So, and I don't mean that like when you go to perform it, but when you write it, do you find you go, how are people going to react to this, or who is going to like this, and is that something that on every level does it affect you at all?
Short answer would be no. I don't really think about other people.
Good.
But then it's usually when I start getting to the end, because the beginning of it is just play. The beginning of it is just pure enjoyment. The second I start thinking about other people, I'm like, then things like my head spirals the wrong way. And I start thinking, everything I do is shit. And like, nobody's going to like my music. And like, who am I? And they're not going to like me. So I try to not even think about that. Um, yeah. Even like the few people who do like my music, I just feel like I'm such a chameleon with everything that I do that I'm like, they could like one thing that I do and like hate the next thing that I do and like
Yeah.
whatever, you know. As much as like I always hear like, and I don't know if this is wrong to say, but people are like, I did it for my fans and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I don't know. At the end of the day, I did it for myself. I
Yeah.
did it because I needed to do it. Like there's something inside of me to just like made me need to create something. And if other people resonate with it, cool. If not, you know, like I'm just happy I did the thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, exactly. And to see it through, I find is always very satisfying, you know, because it can take
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this down too is from what I gather, um, your first EP and
Mm-hmm.
album under your full name,
Yeah.
uh, was songs that you had kind of accumulated over a long period of time. That's correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but this
Mostly.
new project was very spontaneous, right? That's correct?
Yeah, this project was like a year.
Right.
Um and yeah, like I just started making some beats and then I was like, I honestly, it was going to be an instrumental album.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know how lyrics even happened. It's just, you know, I was kind of like sharing them with a friend and like he's like, "Oh, you know, like would you want to put lyrics to it?" And I'm like, I don't know, probably not. And then that thought in my mind, I'm like, let me just try some stuff. And I started trying stuff and then like so much that I tried was shit, like so bad. And then just like somehow these things came out, and like I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cool, kind of like it, and just stuck with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Um, you seen any good movies lately? You watch any good television or movies lately?
Mm, I love like anything that's like dystopian,
Right. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sci-fi. What did I watch that I liked? I liked 3%. It's this Brazilian dystopian TV show that's just kind of
I'm familiar.
like it's really good. Like there's
Wow.
the idyllic off-island people who got away from like the you know city that's like falling apart and everybody's you know doesn't have access to technology or healthcare or food, and there's like this whole rating system that
Yeah.
like allows people to leave, and it's just like I love the idea of like constructing this idea of what utopia could mean and like how utopia for one person is always dystopia for somebody else.
Yeah. I think about that a lot
So
too.
yeah, so yeah, that's it. I like that stuff.
What would you say? What does your utopia look like?
I don't know. I try to think about that, and like I think everybody at least having their basic needs is
Yeah.
extremely like I feel like that's the basics, like
Yeah.
and be able to be like fulfilled. Like I feel like those two things where it's just like if we can all have that, like that starts my idea of a positive living experience. But I don't know if utopias exist. So I don't know if they're a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I read
So
this short story recently that was about a utopia, and it was this idea that,
mhm,
and it was sort of like a moral question at the core of it. And it was,
mhm,
what if, uh, there's this amazing place. Everybody's happy. Everybody's fulfilled in every which way you could imagine. They have these great festivals. Everybody's like, you know, very liberated and you know, sexually free and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But this place completely disappears if this one little kid that they switch out every 7 years is stuck in a basement with where he only eats grease, and he's
Mm-hmm.
one kid is stuck in the basement. And what do you do,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right? So it's like, is it a
But
utopia
like
if there's that one person, you know,
exactly.
which is interesting.
Exactly. And it can't be. For me personally, I'm like, if one person doesn't get to experience the utopia, then it's not.
Yeah.
That's so that's why I'm just like, And these are the questions that I'm asking, and I'm trying to like deconstruct through making art or whatever. I'm like, what is this shit? Like,
Yeah.
who put us here? And like, why are we dealing with all of this shit constantly? You
Yeah.
know?
Do you have any like relationship with faith? Were you raised religious in any way or anything like that?
Kind of. Like both my parents are like non-practicing Christians, and then but my grandparents on my mother's side was like they're religious. And in my like early teens, like pre-teens, early teens, I decided to take it upon myself to kind of like really learn more about Christianity or whatever,
Yeah.
and go to church myself and like ask questions and like find out about community. And in the end of it, I like decided it wasn't really for me, but I have a lot of positive um, feelings and relations towards the community aspect, the community building around
Yeah. That's
faith.
what it becomes for a lot of people in I
Yeah.
think you're close to the same age as me, but for our, at least our grandparents' age, I think the community becomes very important for both my grandmas who are alive.
Yeah,
That's very important to them.
exactly.
I've never heard them talk about religion beyond the basics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I find that that's one of the things where it's like, you know, rallying around an idea, it's really the just the community that keeps people feeling supported, and feeling heard, and like they have something to do and like a place to gather. Like that's I'm like, how do we do that outside of religion? Because not everybody,
Yeah.
that's not really like, I feel with our generation it's not as much of a thing.
Yeah, we
um
don't care about God. We don't.
yeah, yeah, so so it's like I find it so interesting. I'm like, we don't really have enough spaces to really hold community in that
No.
way, and I feel like that's makes so many people feel really isolated and like
Yeah.
lost, and
And you
I
would
don't
think
know.
that the internet would help, but it seems that it's just further driving people into sort of niche disenfranchisement, you know,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is bizarre and shitty.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, community. Yeah, and you know, you would hope to, and this is a cynical thing, but you would hope that music and art would be some kind of community, and it can be for many. I've never
Hmm.
felt that to the fullest extent, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, but it's competitive, which kind of immediately removes. Yeah, I don't know why it's competitive. It's because it's
Yeah.
ego, and I've suffered from that, and I've learned to just kind of
Hmm.
step back and be like, okay, I don't
Hmm.
care anymore at all. But yeah, I guess that's the question. What's your relationship with your ego like? Do you, is that something you've kind of
Ooh,
gone with?
yeah. Like, this is an interesting one because I find with music, there is that competitive nature with it. And there's this scarcity mentality where it's like so few people, quote unquote, make it in music. And it's like we're all just kind of like, you know, competing for this little piece of the pie. And I definitely struggled with that for a while. I was like, I found it really hard to like be in community and like have peers and like, but also feel like I wasn't getting recognition or
Yeah,
getting the gigs or getting the things. So I have like part of having Shan and Shanika Maria was with Shanika Maria, I had to take a step back. Like I was just like, the way that I am looking at this thing is not healthy and it's not helpful, and it was doing a disservice to my mental well-being and then to my peers. And I keep saying like like I must love getting hurt.
Was it doing
I
a
just think
disservice, I should say?
it was doing a disservice in the sense of like I wasn't really liking what I was doing. Like I was just trying to be more busy because that's what I thought I needed to do.
Yeah.
I was, you know, rushing to put out a project because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I'm taking these gigs that like I don't want to play, or you know, I was grinding so hard, and I'm like, you know, always trying to be personable and networking, and like that's just not my personality. I don't have this like showboaty um I'm so great kind of thing. Like that's
Yeah.
just not how I function in the world right now. And I felt like I had to put on this persona that wasn't myself. And then I found myself like, you know, with social media, you're seeing so and so got this gig and so got signed and so blah blah blah, and you start feeling like jealous,
Jealous. Yeah.
honestly. Like,
Yeah.
and it's such an icky thing to feel. It's an icky thing to say.
Yeah.
um and I had to really like look at myself, and I'm like, how can I sit here and support people when like in the back of my mind I'm like, oh, I wish it was me.
Yeah.
And like, you know, so yeah. To be honest, not performing right now has been really great for my well-being. Not being in these spaces where I'm doing things that I don't know if I actually like doing, or and I'm just doing because I feel like I have to. Um, yeah. For some reason, I keep trying to like leave music.
Yeah.
I keep trying to be like, music is not for me. Like this whole industry is just like hurting my confidence and hurting like, you know, my well-being. But somehow like the act of creating, the act of making music nourishes me in a way. So
Yeah.
it's these two really competing things where it's like, it's honestly the structure of the industry makes you feel like shit.
Yeah. It's
It
a
just
terrible
does.
industry, but you
It's a
can,
terrible
just dip out, and just make music.
yeah.
That's what I had lofty ambitions in my late teens, early
Mhm,
20s, and was just like,
mhm.
in the last few years, just kind of was like, you know what, this has got to be fun. I'm happy to work a job.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I feel now too, where I'm just like, I need to get back to why I actually liked music, and trying things and experimenting is what was fun when I didn't have any money, when I didn't, you know,
Yeah.
like when it wasn't about money. And yes, I do believe if I'm going to do something and put it out in the world, like
You should
we
get
all
some
should
kind of
get paid.
compensation. Yeah.
Yes, I want to get compensated.
Streaming sucks
But
for that too. I make no money off streaming. None.
it's there, like this whole, how they fuck over the artists constantly is just like so shitty. How
Yeah.
even labels work are
We are
mostly really shitty.
we are their product.
Yeah,
Like it's
but we get so little
really,
from it.
yeah.
We're literally like,
We're
and
inanimate, you know?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And we're treated like, you know, we should be so thankful for the little bit of crumbs that we get. And how does that make a sustainable industry? How does that
Yeah.
make a sustainable and quality? If we want to think in products, how do we make quality products if we're just kind of like treating everything like it's disposable?
Yeah. I think the only like logical way I think to accomplish that is having to buckle down and do your own like administrative work, if that makes sense. Like
Uh,
being like, okay, I'm putting
oh
this on
yeah,
streaming services myself. I'm sending
yeah,
the emails, but
yeah,
and that is I think where a lot of people experience burnout very
yeah,
quickly. But
yeah,
if you just compartmentalize the two things, this is creative time, this is administrative time. It can
yeah.
work out. Yeah.
For this project, I did that for the first time ever. I was like, I did all the production, the performance, I did all the administrative stuff. I made all the album art. I was just like, let me see if I can do it. And I realized that I can do it, but it doesn't always mean just because I can do it that I should do it. I now I know like where the spectrum of like how much I can do and like
Yeah,
feel okay,
that's important.
and where I'm just like, okay, this is going to cost this amount of money to do this. Project management means I just gotta like figure out where that money's gonna be to, and like the fact that we're in Canada, and like I wish more folks would like, one, it was more accessible and more folks would take advantage of the fact like we got grants in Canada, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
The States doesn't have grants like
Not like
this,
this.
so
Yeah.
not like this at all. So I'm just like,
The grant writing.
I
That's
really,
what all the older
yeah,
artists that talk to me, they're like, you gotta learn how to write a grant, buddy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I have not gotten so many grants, you know, in my
Yeah.
life. But it's one of those things, it's a skill. Like anything else, like anything like becoming a better guitar player, becoming a better singer, all those things are skills. And you can just get better at it the more you do it. And it sucks. And like, it sucks doing it and like having to like be on top of the artistic process in like such a regimented way
Yeah.
where it's like I don't even know what this project is going to be, but I have to like BS something to the
Yeah.
grantors to make it sound like I know what I'm doing
Yeah.
and give me money, please.
I've always had it in my head applying for a grant in Canada. It's like I want to make a documentary about the Yukon. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like that's what you got to do. Yeah. Or so you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
way they'd ever give me a grant for being like I want to make something noisy or something, you know.
Oh, they will. They will. They will. Just go for it. Honestly, because that's what stops so many of us. This is what stops all of us from like doing the things that we need to do and like
Yeah.
even trying, you know? Just like go for it. What do you have to lose? You already
Yeah,
like
that's true.
before the grant, you didn't have the grant. So
Yeah. Nothing to lose except a little bit of
yeah.
time. Yeah.
A little bit of time, but you
But the
know,
reward is so
it
high.
could have,
Low
yeah,
risk.
like,
That's
low
true.
risk.
Maybe I could get a
Exactly.
grant for this podcast. I don't know where I'd put the money in, but that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I do
Some
like I have an
equipment,
obsession with
some,
yeah, that's true. I have an obsession
yeah.
with the idea of Canadiana and I kind of want to explore that. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what that is, you know, but
Well, you
kind
get
of
a grant and then you can do the research.
yeah,
And
exactly.
like the grants will pay for your time to do research. Like,
Yeah. I work in a kitchen. I would love to not work in a kitchen.
yeah,
Yeah.
feel you, feel you.
Okay. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Um,
You got anything on your mind?
Not really. I don't know. If there's no more questions, I think I'm good.
All right. Cool. What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you eat for breakfast?
I'm so boring for breakfast.
I am too.
I like have the same thing every day. Uh, like those Quaker Oats oatmeal packs,
Yeah, yeah.
like just beige, like a bowl of beige.
Beige. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like my go-to because in the morning I have like no will to do
Cook up.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it. So I'm just like hot water, oatmeal, maybe if I'm feeling fancy and like there's a ripe banana, I'll put one of those in there, but like that's as fancy as you can get for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
What about
I'm,
you? What did you
I'm
have for breakfast?
I am in the middle of a
Breakfast?
shitty protein bar from
Okay.
Costco. It's really gross, but it's got almonds in it, which is kind of
Hmm.
nice. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What do you like to eat? What do you like? What's your shit? I love eating. I'm a huge eater. So
Oh, I'm a big foodie person.
cool.
Okay. Top three cuisines would be,
You're in Toronto too, so there's some good eating.
there's some good spots. I
Yeah.
would probably say Japanese, Indian, and then a tie between Mexican and Vietnamese.
Okay. Yeah. I've been big on the Vietnamese recently. I've been really digging it. It's so
So
like
good.
it's like I used to eat a lot of like ramen, and I found that
Mhm.
the pho
Yeah,
is just a cleaner alternative. You know?
it is. It is. It
Yeah.
just feels so healthy. I just
Yeah.
feel so like
I don't think it is, but
Comforting.
it feels healthy. Yeah.
It feels healthy.
Yeah.
I can, as long as it feels healthy, I don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
I can just speculate.
Trust your internal
My
intuition,
gut.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, where are the top spots in Toronto? I'm always curious about Canadian restaurants.
Top spots. Oh, I'm not a good one for that.
Okay.
Um, hmm.
You guys got a Mamafuku there, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, never been there.
okay.
Yeah, I'm like not good with that. Like, I don't go to restaurants that like I don't go and like sit down in restaurants. Every once in a while I'll get takeout.
Okay.
But yeah, I just find like Toronto's just too damn expensive.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. Toronto's like so expensive. It's just that's why I'm like,
I mean, here's pretty bad
it,
too. In Victoria, it's pretty bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I
I
had a
did
buddy.
spend a little bit of time in Victoria at one point.
Yeah. You played here once, right?
I did.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Yeah. Oh, I liked Victoria. It's just like it's really pretty. Like
Yeah,
it's just
it's
like
beautiful here. Yeah.
it's so nice. Yeah, it was pricey and I was a student. Um, yeah, but I just thought it was like so nice.
Yeah.
I want to go back one day, but you know.
We'd love to have you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we can call it there. I think that's all right.
Cool.
Cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
chatting. I'm gonna stop recording.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.